In every great empire, the hands that built it are forgotten. Only the face remains. The invisible hand that reaps. In a world obsessed with effort, there lies a quiet and dangerous truth. Results speak louder than sweat. The modern mind is conditioned to believe in the virtue of hard work, late nights, sacrifices, the grind. But history rarely remembers those who worked the hardest. It remembers those who stood in the spotlight when the curtain rose. This is the harsh, strategic brilliance of law number 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. It's not about being lazy. It's about understanding how systems of power operate. In monarchies, in corporations, in empires, and in the hidden architecture of influence. The true elite do not waste energy on what others can do better, faster, or cheaper. They curate, direct, and claim. The modern business world runs on this law. CEOs reap accolades crafted by thousands of silent engineers, designers, and marketers. Politicians win elections using speeches written by ghostwriters and strategies devised by unseen think tanks. Even in creative fields, the artist who signs the canvas often built their masterpiece upon a foundation laid by assistants, apprentices, or inspiration stolen and repurposed from others. But here's the paradox. We are taught that this is unfair. That credit must be earned. That effort equals ownership. That taking without building is theft. And yet, the real world does not care. Efficiency over effort. If you manage a team and personally do everything, you are not a leader. You are a bottleneck. If you have a vision, but insist on executing every detail yourself, your impact will always be limited by your hours. This law exists not to diminish labor, but to elevate leverage, to recognize that power is not in the action, but in the orchestration of action. The general who fights with the sword is romantic and dead. The general who moves armies without lifting one himself survives. In the economy of influence, efficiency is the new morality. If you can accomplish great results without direct effort, society, especially its upper tiers, will respect you more, not less. Why? Because it signals mastery, control, vision, command. From empire to corporation. Let's examine how this law applies across time. The Roman emperors built nothing themselves. They took the credit for victories won by generals and engineers. The Medici financed and controlled Florence, but rarely got their hands dirty. Their names are immortalized not because they painted, fought, or carved, but because they funded, directed, and branded those who did. Fast forward to Steve Jobs. He didn't invent the iPhone, but he had the final word. He curated, rejected, reimagined, and in the public mind, he was the iPhone. Elon Musk didn't build Tesla from scratch. He joined after it began. But he became the face, the brand, the symbol, and now the credit is his. This is the pattern. Power is not in the doing. Power is in the narrative. Strategic shadow. There is also a strategic elegance in this law. By delegating the labor, you not only gain time and energy, you create strategic distance. If things go wrong, blame is deflected. If they go right, you step in as the face of success. Those who work for you often want to stay invisible. They get paid. They feel useful. They may lack ambition, or they are not ready to risk reputation. You, the front figure, absorb the light, and with it, both danger and glory. But if you manage this balance carefully, you remain untouched by failure and elevated by achievement. Is it fair? Here's where the law becomes morally complicated. Most people instinctively feel this strategy is wrong. It's not your work. Why should you take the credit? But let's challenge this. If a conductor leads a world-class orchestra but doesn't play a single instrument, is he not entitled to applause? If a founder inspires a company, guides it, risks everything, even if she never wrote a single line of code, is she not responsible for its success? Credit is not about action. Credit is about consequence. And in the real world, perception outweighs fairness. History is not fair. Power is not fair. The goal is not fairness. It is impact, the cost of pride. Ironically, those who cling to personal credit often limit themselves. The perfectionist who refuses to delegate burns out. The craftsman who never lets others contribute becomes obsolete. The genius who hides their ideas for fear of theft dies unheard. Pride in authorship can be a prison. Letting go strategically is freedom. When you learn to leverage the minds and hands of others while guiding the result, you evolve from player to architect. You shift from laborer to legend. The ethical line. This law, however, must be used with precision. There is a thin line between strategic credit and manipulative theft. If you abuse your team, lie about your contribution, or leave your allies in the dark, it will eventually backfire. The most successful users of this law are those who share power internally but claim power externally, those who reward their teams quietly but dominate the narrative publicly. This isn't about exploitation, it's about orchestration. You are not stealing, you are conducting. And if the music is sublime, the world will clap for you, not the orchestra. Setting the stage. As you go deeper into this law, you'll begin to see it everywhere. In politics, tech, warfare, entertainment, the quiet strategists behind the scenes, the visible icons basking in spotlight, the elite who build reputations on foundations others carved. They are not wrong, they are strategic. In the chapters ahead, we'll explore the most powerful examples in history of this law in action, and how to use it without losing your soul. Because in the game of power, those who do everything themselves become exhausted pawns. Those who leverage others with grace and control, they become kings. The mastermind of light, how Thomas Edison took the credit and the glory. When you hear the name Thomas Edison, what comes to mind? The light bulb, the phonograph, electric power. In the American imagination, and far beyond, Edison is painted as the ultimate inventor, the lone genius working tirelessly in his lab, fueled by coffee and pure ambition, the man who brought light to the world. But this image, though legendary, is not quite accurate. In truth, Edison was not a lone genius. He was a master of orchestration, a strategic visionary who understood a fundamental truth of power. It doesn't matter who does the work. It matters who gets the glory. The birth of a myth. Born in 1847, Edison began his career as a telegraph operator and tinkerer. He quickly showed an instinct not just for invention, but for positioning. As his ambitions grew, he realized a core limitation. Time and energy are finite. One man can only invent so much, but a team of minds, directed by one strong hand, that's a force of nature. So, in 1876, Edison opened his now legendary Menlo Park Laboratory in New Jersey, the world's first industrial research lab. But make no mistake, this wasn't a one-man operation. Edison employed over 200 engineers, scientists, and machinists over the years. He delegated, observed, tested, criticized, and approved. But he rarely worked alone. The power of delegation. The light bulb, Edison's most famous invention, is a perfect example. By the time he invented it in 1879, dozens of inventors had already experimented with incandescent lighting. The idea had been in development for over 40 years. What Edison did differently wasn't magical. It was systematic. He assigned a team of experts to test thousands of filament materials. He secured patents. He coordinated public demonstrations. He built the marketing around it. And when it succeeded, he stepped into the spotlight, smiling, articulate, dressed like a working man genius. He didn't say we, he said I. Does he did? Nikola Tesla, the forgotten mind. Nowhere is this strategy more stark than in Edison's relationship with Nikola Tesla. In the late 1880s, Tesla, a Serbian-born engineer with a remarkable gift for visualizing machines, began working for Edison. Tesla proposed a revolutionary idea, replacing Edison's direct current DC electrical system with alternating current AC, a far more efficient, scalable solution for powering cities. Edison refused. DC was his domain. He dismissed Tesla's ideas, mocked them, and refused to pay him a promised bonus. Tesla left, humiliated, but he kept building. Eventually, with the help of George Westinghouse, Tesla's AC system gained momentum. It won the war of the currents. AC became the global standard. Yet for decades, and even today, Edison remains the name most associated with electricity. Not Tesla, because Edison controlled the narrative. The Menlo Park illusion. Edison's brilliance wasn't just technical, it was psychological. He crafted the image of the tireless inventor. Smudged glasses, wires everywhere, a glowing prototype in his hands. Newspapers loved it. Investors loved it. America loved it. Inside Menlo Park, brilliant engineers like Francis Upton and Charles Batchelor contributed crucial discoveries. But in press releases and patent filings, the name was always the same. Thomas Alva Edison. This was no accident. Edison registered over 1,000 patents in his lifetime. Most were team efforts, but he was the brand, the name, the symbol. When investors looked for innovation, they didn't search for Batchelor or Upton. They searched for Edison. He made himself indispensable by becoming the public mind behind every private breakthrough. The spotlight is strategic. Edison understood something few inventors ever do. It's not the invention that matters. It's who gets remembered for it. He orchestrated public demonstrations with flair, shocking audiences with electric chairs, lighting city blocks, playing phonograph recordings. He made science theatrical. And he always put himself center stage. His competitors, often more ethical, sometimes more brilliant, were left behind. Tesla died broke. Westinghouse faded into industrial history. Other contributors were buried in lab notes and forgotten blueprints. Edison became immortal. The price and the payoff. Was it fair? That's a philosophical question. But from a strategic standpoint, it was flawless. By building a structure where others worked and he directed, Edison multiplied his output. He scaled himself. He became a brand, not just a man. That brand brought him wealth, access, and historical permanence. Even today, school children learn Edison invented the light bulb. That is the power of taking credit. The final spark. In his later years, Edison continued to surround himself with bright minds, including his sons. He dabbled in motion pictures, storage batteries, and cement. But the pattern remained unchanged. He never stopped innovating. But more importantly, he never stopped curating the perception that he was the genius. Not the lab, not the team, him. This wasn't accidental, it was deliberate. And it's a masterclass in law number 7. The lesson. Thomas Edison shows us what happens when you control the flow of credit. He understood that in the arena of power, effort is invisible. Perception is everything. He didn't steal. He directed. He didn't lie. He simplified. He didn't always build, but he always branded. And history remembers what is branded, not what is built. psychological and strategic mechanism. Why power favors those who reap, not those who sow. We like to believe the world rewards effort. We teach children that if they work hard, they'll be noticed, that diligence, honesty, and skill will shine on their own. But power operates by a different code. It is not concerned with how something was made, only who stands in front of it when it is unveiled. This law works not because it is fair, but because it aligns with how the human mind perceives value, leadership, and dominance. Let's break it down. 1. The brain doesn't care about effort, only output. Our cognitive wiring is designed to evaluate results, not the hidden labor behind them. In evolutionary terms, survival depends on outcomes. The fruit found, not the hours spent searching. The enemy defeated, not the plan devised. The leader who shows the kill, not the one who sharpened the spear. This is why, in almost every domain, from politics to art to science, the person who delivers the message becomes more iconic than the person who developed the idea. We are biologically biased to simplify stories. The public doesn't want to hear the story of 10 engineers arguing over resistance variables. They want a name, a face, and a sentence. Edison invented the light bulb. Behind every great product, every political movement, every historic speech, there is a hidden layer of grind. But our brains, due to cognitive load reduction, filter that out. The man in front of the curtain gets remembered because he's easier to remember. Second status, hierarchy, builders versus users. There is a brutal hierarchy baked into power. The one who builds is always beneath the one who uses. In tribal societies, the craftsman was useful, but the chieftain, who wielded the weapons, distributed food, and enforced alliances, held the real power. This has not changed. In business, the engineer who codes the algorithm is vital, but the CEO who sells the vision and raises the capital is dominant. Why? Because use implies control. Use implies ownership, and ownership is what humans instinctively equate with power. This is why even the most talented creators, if they fail to claim and frame their output, remain invisible. They are perceived as tools, not players. The strategist who orchestrates and takes the credit rises. The one who builds in silence becomes a replaceable function. 3. Leverage beats labor, the economics of power. In the cold math of strategy, leverage always beats hard work. Hard work is linear. One person puts in 1 unit of time and gets 1 unit of result. Leverage is exponential. You build a machine, you build a team, you build a system. Then, instead of pushing the cart yourself, you ride it while others pull. Thomas Edison understood this. So did Steve Jobs. So does every elite operator. They delegate the doing. They focus on direction, brand, and timing. Because those 3 things scale, effort doesn't. And in the eyes of power, scale equals worth. The power of the face, owning the narrative. In media, in politics, in business, the face is the story, not the facts, not the footnotes, not the spreadsheets. People trust what they see, and what they see is the one who speaks last, the one on the stage, the one whose name is on the press release. Even when the audience intellectually knows there's a team involved, their emotional allegiance goes to the symbol. This is why generals, not soldiers, become legends. This is why Steve Jobs, not Wozniak, was on the cover of Time. And it's why politicians have speechwriters yet speak in first person. Power is symbolic, and if you own the symbol, you own the win, even if the weight of the work was borne by others. 5. Control is the true currency. At its core, this law is about control, not dishonesty. You're not required to deceive. You're required to orchestrate. The truth is, most people want to be part of something, They want to contribute. They want their work to live on, even if they're not famous. They don't need the spotlight. They need clarity, purpose, and payment. That leaves room for you to take the narrative leadership, to be the one who collects, refines, and presents the output as your own. You are not stealing. You are absorbing. And that absorption is what allows you to be seen as a force rather than a function. Bis was in charge. 6. The strategic role of visibility. When you take credit, you become the interface between output and the world. That interface is critical. You attract opportunities, you attract more talent, you attract better positioning, and you become the lens through which all future contributions are filtered. This creates a feedback loop of power. Others work with or for you because you're known. Their output raises your profile. Your profile attracts more projects. You choose what to present as yours. At no point do you need to lie, but at every point you need to curate, because power flows toward clarity, and confusion over who did what weakens your position. 7. The morality dilemma. Some resist this law out of guilt. They fear being seen as manipulative or unjust. But the truth is, in most hierarchies, value is separated from visibility. Those who do the work are not always those best suited to translate it into influence. If you can be the translator, the bridge, the platform, that is a role of immense value. And taking credit for orchestrating a system that delivers results is not unethical. It is strategic maturity. Yes, this can be abused, but when applied with precision and acknowledgement, privately if not publicly, it creates momentum for all involved. 8. Silence is not humility, it's weakness. One of the most costly mistakes creators make is remaining silent after delivering results. They hope someone will notice. They hope credit will be given naturally. But hope is not a power strategy. Power is proactive. To master this law, you must claim space, visibly, verbally, and consistently. Silence does not protect, it erases. Final thought. This law taps into the deepest layers of our species. Our preference for symbols over complexity. Our instinct to follow visible authority. Our obsession with outcomes over effort. To win in a world driven by attention, speed, and status, you must stop being the engine and start being the driver. Build teams, orchestrate systems, absorb their power, present the result, and let your name echo louder than the sum of its parts. 1. Steve Jobs and the iPod revolution. When Apple released the iPod in 2001, the world hailed it as a technological and design miracle. Steve Jobs became the face of digital music, sleek, intuitive, world-changing. But the actual core software wasn't built in Cupertino. It came from a startup called Pixo, and its engineers built much of the internal interface. The scroll wheel? Not an Apple invention. The compressed music codec? Licensed, yet Jobs masterfully packaged, positioned, and presented. He held the iPod in his palm, like a prophet holding a tablet. The story was his. Ask the average person who invented the iPod, and they'll say Steve Jobs. That's power, not in writing code, but in owning the frame. 2nd, President Ronald Reagan and the Cold War victory. The collapse of the Soviet Union is often attributed to the strong, unyielding rhetoric and policy of U.S. President Ronald Reagan. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. But the seeds of that collapse were planted long before. Economic strains under Brezhnev, internal dissent, strategic negotiations under Carter and Nixon, Chernobyl's erosion of internal trust. Reagan stepped in as the final act. He delivered the line, symbolized the victory, and was immortalized as the man who defeated communism. He didn't do it alone, but he claimed the moment, and history rewarded him. 3. Napoleon Bonaparte and the art of delegated genius. Napoleon is often hailed as a military genius, but few know how often he relied on the genius of others, especially his chief of staff, Marshal Berthier. Berthier coordinated logistics, drew up battle plans, and anticipated enemy movements with near supernatural foresight. But he remained silent, invisible. Napoleon used that machinery and took the public credit for the tactical brilliance. When Berthier briefly left, Napoleon's efficiency collapsed. The lesson? A true master of power builds a machine, then places himself at the front as its living symbol. 4. Thomas Edison and the light bulb myth. Edison is globally recognized as the father of the light bulb. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." But here's the truth. Edison had a full team of inventors, known as muckers, who worked around the clock. Men like Francis Upton and Lewis Latimer did much of the actual experimentation and refinement. Edison's real genius? Building Menlo Park as the first modern R&D lab, then branding himself as the central figure. He curated the image of the tireless innovator, and the world bought it. Anish. 5. Julius Caesar and the glory of Gaul. During the Gallic Wars, 58 to 50 BCE, Julius Caesar expanded Roman territory massively. His commentaries describe him as brilliant, victorious, nearly divine in command. But his legates, like Titus Labienus, executed key operations. His engineers built bridges over rivers no one dared cross. His scribes wrote the reports that glorified him. Still, only one name survived the centuries: Caesar. By documenting the war himself, in third-person narrative, Caesar didn't just win militarily, he owned the myth. He became more than a general. He became a legend. Final glance. Across history, the pattern repeats. The creator builds. The conductor orchestrates. The commander collects the crown. The public sees the face, not the force behind it. And in the game of power, perception always outweighs precision. Beginner mistakes. The tragedy of invisible effort. In the pursuit of power, many talented individuals dig their own graves, not through weakness or laziness, but through overwork, over-honesty, and under-strategy. They believe the world will reward effort, that doing more means receiving more, that recognition is automatic if the work is excellent. They are wrong, and they learn it late, after burnout, betrayal, and buried legacy. Here are the most common traps that ambitious but unwise individuals fall into when they ignore this law. 1. Doing everything themselves. The myth of the hero worker. Some people refuse to delegate. They trust no one to match their standards. They say, "If I want it done right, I'll do it myself." At first, they're praised. Such a hard worker. They build everything brick by brick, code by code, email by email. But they hit a wall. Time. They become bottlenecks. Their talent becomes a prison. They can't scale, can't grow, and can't be seen because they're too deep in the trenches. Meanwhile, someone else, who contributed less but positioned themselves smarter, takes the stage, the investors, the credit. Reality, power, doesn't reward volume. It rewards visibility. 2. Giving away glory. The tragic honest type. Then there are the noble souls. They build something great and immediately credit everyone but themselves. "This wasn't me, it was my team. I just helped a little. I couldn't have done it without X." Admirable? Maybe. Strategic? Never. Because people remember the face, not the footnote. History isn't written by the honest, it's written by the recognized. Of course, you should reward your team, but let that happen privately, financially, or within tight circles. Publicly, you are the banner, the emblem, the leader. If you refuse to be seen, someone else will be happy to step in. Third, believing the work speaks for itself. The favorite myth of craftsmen. That beautiful code, perfect design, or brilliant idea will naturally rise to the top. No need to self-promote, no need to network, just excellence. But here's the harsh truth. Work doesn't speak, people do, and if you don't claim your work, someone else will. In every field, from tech to academia, ideas are stolen, diluted, rebranded. Why? Because those who control the narrative win. You built it, show it, speak it, own it, or watch someone repackage your labor as theirs. Fourth, not understanding power optics. Some rookies delegate, but they delegate wrong. They assign tasks without controlling perception. Their assistants outshine them. Their subordinates become public faces. Their projects get attributed to the executor, not the architect. They mistake leadership for absence. But power isn't in being unseen. It's in directing the scene. Even when others do the work, you must frame it. Make the press release quote you. Make the logo carry your name. Make the celebration revolve around your story. Otherwise, you're just another background donor in someone else's movie. 5. Chasing fairness instead of leverage. Some people struggle with the moral weight of this law. It's not fair to take credit for others' work. Isn't that manipulation? I want to be authentic, not political. Noble intentions. But in a world of predators and optics, such naivety is dangerous. This law isn't about exploitation. It's about leverage. You create systems, teams, partnerships where everyone wins, but the credit, and with it, the influence, must flow up. Why? Because the world respects ownership, not just effort. If you give away your power to appear fair, you'll become a tool, used by those who are less fair but more strategic. 6. Failing to document and brand the outcome. You did the work, you led the vision, you made it happen, but you didn't record it, publish it, or stamp your name on it. So when the time came for awards, promotions, recognition, no one remembered. The photos had others. The reports skipped your role. The team moved on. You became a ghost. Smart players pre-frame and post-frame everything. They write the origin story. They capture the journey. They plant narratives that ensure credit crystallizes where it should, on them. 7. Being afraid of the spotlight. Finally, some people just hate attention. They do great things, then hide. They mumble in meetings. They let others present. They avoid interviews, panels, social media. They say, I don't need the spotlight. But if you never show up, you can't complain when others step up and steal the moment. You don't have to be loud, arrogant, or fake. But you must be present, you must be positioned, you must be named. Otherwise, you become replaceable. And replaceable people don't last. Summary: the invisible builder dies forgotten. The biggest mistake is this: thinking that power will reward effort. It won't. Power rewards strategy, positioning, and the ability to engineer perception. You can build empires behind the curtain, but if you never step forward, never sign your name, never control the story, the world will rewrite your contribution and assign it to someone louder, bolder, and more shameless. Don't be the builder who dies unknown. Be the strategist who harvests the rewards. Actionable tactics: how to build empires without lifting the bricks. Power is not earned by volume of labor. It is earned by direction, narrative, and control. Here's how to use this law with precision, without burning bridges or losing your soul. 1. Choose builders, not threats. If others will do the work, choose them wisely. You're not looking for stars. You're looking for builders, those who crave execution more than visibility. Have skills you lack or don't want to use. Prefer praise in private over public recognition. Don't feel the need to own the spotlight. Early in your journey, hire freelancers, ghostwriters, junior partners. Later, hire executives, agencies, speechwriters, designers. Filter them not just by skill, but by ego size. If someone talks too much about credit, they may try to leak your power. Second, control the frame from the start. Before a project begins, define who leads, who presents, and who is quoted. Never assume others will just know you're in charge. People follow what they see, not what they're told. Frame the project in a way where your name is in the deck. You open the meetings. You approve the final version. You control delivery to the client, his audience. If you set the tone from the beginning, no one will question who the captain is. 3. Become the strategist, not the operator. Do not micromanage. Instead, design the vision. Set the metrics. Choose the direction. Let others fill in the path. You stay at the top, orchestrating. This gives you deniability, leverage, and time. You're free to focus on optics, outcomes, and perception, not execution. Great power comes not from doing everything, but from knowing what not to touch. Usage. SDT. Fourth, master the art of attribution. Once results are in, frame them strategically. This doesn't mean lying. It means curating the story. Use we when things go wrong. Use I when the vision worked. Highlight your role in the inception, direction, and strategy. Thank the team, but make it clear you led them. Great leaders accept praise like conductors, not janitors. 5. Design the information flow. Be the primary source of updates to external stakeholders. Never let a developer present directly to the board. Never let a designer email the client alone. Why? Because narrative equals power. If others are telling the story, you've lost control of how the result is seen. Always filter the information. Refine it, simplify it, and put your name on it. This keeps you in the spotlight, even if you were behind the curtain. Yay! 6. Reward. Quietly, own loudly. Behind the scenes, reward well. Pay bonuses. Offer referrals. Say thank you. Be loyal, but publicly, always keep your name at the center. You don't need to be arrogant, but you do need to be present. Your followers, investors, or audience want a hero to anchor the narrative. Be that hero. Let the support stay in the credits, not the headlines. Asti. 7. Build systems, not bottlenecks. If you rely too much on one star player, they can hold you hostage. Solution: build systems, SOPs, templates, guidelines, AI-assisted pipelines, modular teams. So if one executor leaves, your empire doesn't crumble. Systems protect your power from individual egos, and they let you plug in people silently without losing rhythm. Yes. 8. Use ghosts. Writers, designers, editors. In every field, ghost contributors exist. Ghostwriters for books and speeches. Ghost designers for branding. Ghost editors for videos. Ghost coders for tech founders. Use them. Let the output speak with your tone, your values, your face. This isn't manipulation. It's how every powerful figure operates. Your ideas, your strategy, their hands. 9. Never let the worker outshine you. This is key. If someone is executing for you, don't let them build their own platform in parallel. Red flags. They post your work as theirs. They seek interviews about the project. They tag your clients. They publish behind-the-scenes breakdowns without your consent. Shut this down early, or they'll steal your oxygen. You can allow limited exposure if it helps them grow, but on your terms and with your frame. 10. Public. Be you. Private. Be them. The simplest rule of all: in public, you are the face of the victory. In private, they get the gratitude, rewards, and credit. This balance keeps everyone motivated without diluting your authority. Never reverse it. Don't disappear during the success moment. Don't expose your whole process. Don't make heroes of others before you've cemented your own legend. Masinduni si and do shi. Bonus: what never to do. Never apologize for taking the lead. Never share credit unless you strategically frame it. Never allow chaos in roles. Never let clients or stakeholders go around you to your team. Never forget, the world remembers faces, not files. Asisitvashi. Build the pyramid, own the peak. To implement this law is to understand the architecture of power. You are the architect, not the bricklayer. Let others build. Let others sweat. Let others polish. But you design the vision. You steer the ship. You write the story. And when the empire stands tall, your name is etched at the top, as it should be. Conclusion: the silent sovereign. In a world obsessed with hustle, where the loudest voice often drowns out the most brilliant mind, the true strategist is the one who moves unseen. Law 7 is not about stealing. It's not about manipulation for its own sake. It's about orchestrating power, knowing how to be the conductor, not the violinist, the one who sees the whole board, the one who doesn't fight for credit, but ensures credit lands exactly where it needs to, in their name. This law reveals a brutal truth. Society doesn't reward effort. It rewards outcomes. A peasant may till the soil, but it is the king's name that is carved into history. A scientist may build the theory, but the investor owns the patent. A soldier may fight the war, but the general earns the glory. And yet, this is not injustice. This is design. Power flows to those who know how to shape perception, direct the narrative, and structure reality so that everything others do becomes an extension of their will. That's not theft. That's leadership at the highest level. A true ruler builds systems, not only solutions. He recruits minds brighter than his own, lets them toil, create, explore, while he defines the frame, the vision, and the name under which it all moves forward. The vision is his. The win is his. The game, his. The hand that does the work may build a house, but the hand that signs the blueprint owns the city. In the eyes of history, no one asks who labored. They ask who led. This law is not for the weak-hearted. It requires restraint. To remain in the shadows when your ego screams for praise. It demands discipline. To design structures that serve you long after others are done. And it demands vision. To see beyond the project into the empire. True power is leveraged, not earned by sweat. It is architected, managed, curated. When you master this law, you begin to think like a sovereign, not a servant. You step out of the race and start owning the racetrack. So ask yourself, are you the one holding the tools or the one holding the strings? Because in the final analysis, the world doesn't belong to the hardest worker. It belongs to the one who turns the work of others into an empire, with his name engraved at the top. If you've made it this far, you already sense it. This channel isn't entertainment. It's an intellectual edge, a weapon in a world ruled by invisible games. Subscribe not just to stay informed, but to stay ahead. Because next, we dive into law number 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. A masterclass in gravitational power, where we reveal the art of pulling others into your orbit without ever chasing. You won't want to miss it.